Awesome. All right. Well, we have known for a while now that many people are are disputing and debating this whole thing about ADHD, ADD, good parenting, bad parenting, separated families, divorced families, all this stuff and how it affects the person who has ADD and ADHD. Now it's probably going to focus a little bit more on the kids aspect, but this is really for all adults, even the adults who have ADHD themselves, and we know that that's true. We know that's real nowadays. We have clients who we help with every single day. So you've got to understand that, as adults, we're very responsible for what's going on in our lives, and it's important that those people in our lives that have ADHD, it's important that we take into account what we're going to go through tonight. And I am going to give you these 12 exact things. And there are people on this call I know because I see their names, and my supporters. We have other doctors on the call, and then we've got folks from around the United States, because this blog post itself got so much traffic from the planet that literally the biggest training webinar right now we've ever done. So we're stoked to get this started. Now, I'm going to close this control panel. We're going to get going right away. So it's important that, we all agree it's easier to build up a child than it is to repair an adult. And it is. And we know that. We know that kids heal quicker. We know that they respond faster to chiropractic care, to changes in nutrition. We know they respond better to loving, kind remarks and things like that. But they also pick up on the other stuff. And when I have clients who come in who are between 8 and 12 and 14, I know that within weeks to months it's going to be a completely different person. When the clients are the 20, 30, and 40, there's a lot more baggage, and there's a lot more stress going on in their lives presently, but also from the past that carries. So this saying that it's easier to build up a child than it is to repair an adult is so big. It's a big understanding that we have to understand. And as we go through these slides, it's going to just sink in deeper and deeper how important that is. So, we always discuss, we want to know what's the problem. What's the problem right now that we're facing? And most people would nod their head and say yes if we asked, has ADHD been labeled a disorder, syndrome, a problem creator in society? We do these live presentations in Richmond, Virginia, and the entire group, audience, looks at each other. They're all nodding their heads. They're like, yes, of course it is. Can people with ADHD leave a wake of destruction and very exasperated people around them? Yeah, you bet they can. You bet we can. Everybody who knows my story, who's read all the blog posts and or has met me or my videos, knows that I have ADHD. And now most people who meet me would say, there's no way you have that. But my story growing up, through the blogs and through everything that people have read, they know the struggles. I was doing this podcast today with a guy from RVAReal.tv, and he had almost felt like he stepped on my toes when he said, well, maybe, the struggle growing up through ADHD, and then he stopped himself. And I said, no, it's true, in no uncertain terms was it not a struggle. It was a struggle. It was a tough struggle all the way through to get to where we are now. That's why I'm so compassionate and driven to make sure people we help don't have to grow up through a life that I had. If I can derail some of that stuff for anybody, trust me, my mother, my father will tell you that would be a much better way to go. Now listen, how many kids have been labeled as problems, as nuisance, or disturbed, or special needs? That's how many now? Because of the disturbing behavior, causing the noises, the impulsivity, the racket that's done in class, you can't sit still or something's wrong, or the complete opposite. You're talking to them, it seems like their brain's not even present, and they're not there, or they don't think when they're about to do something. Or you ask them to do something, and then 10 minutes later, they come back and have completely forgotten what they were supposed to do. So this is the kicker, this one. How many kids have been abused because they have the traits of ADHD? Misunderstood. We talked about this so much today on the podcast, and we really nailed this down to the fact that it is a misunderstood diagnosis. Even the medical doctors who truly understand this, even the New York Times best-selling author Dr. Hollowell, who wrote 18 bestsellers for ADHD, he says on stage all the time, this is not a disorder. That's such a wrong word. And that's the negative tone that society's placed on this thing. And it's almost like they're offended now that if you say someone has ADD or ADHD, and that can be farther from the truth. For me, and many psychologists know me, ADHD has one of the best prognosis in the DSM-4, the psychological textbook of all the disorders. So, having ADHD, yes, can bring on some negative issues. Of course, I understand that. But there's also that glimmer of hope. You've seen that spark of genius in your child, in your spouse, in yourself, when everything in their brain was firing correctly and amazing things were happening. Solutions were created. Wonderful work was produced. All of these things, you processed enormous amounts of data. You figured out a solution to a problem that people had been working on for years, all at once, and it just seemed so obvious to you. So we know that this brain is something amazing, and right now it's trying to fit the square peg in the round hole. It's just not going to happen with the schools and society and government and corporations, and we also have to understand relationships too. So I'm going to check and make sure that you guys are on board with me here. Go ahead. I want you to click that hand that you have. I want you to raise your hand. It should be on the right of your screen. If there's a little hand, you can push it up. 2, 6, 7, 12. Good. All right. So you're following along with me. And you agree. These 4 questions, they put a spotlight on the issues that we need to deal with. Now moving along. So why hasn't it been solved? It has not been solved. Anybody can tell me. It's not being solved. It's certainly not being solved by medication. It's certainly not being solved by just behavior modification, because if it was, it would have already been solved. There is not one solution to this. Medication can help or worsen the problem. No one knows which medication will work for each person, so it's really a game of brain chemical Russian roulette. Then you got social media. The internet's filled with these anecdotal, these living room stories, these guesses, and finger pointing and stuff. We were discussing in depth today where I talk with the other experts in the psychology, and I talk with the medical doctors, and we get referrals from them, and they know that I understand it and I have a passion for it. But the biggest thing is I ask them all the same question, and I get the same answer. Not one medical doctor knows which drug will work for which person. 0. None. Okay? That means 100% don't know which one's going to work for which person. That is ridiculous, scary, negligent, you name it. But to put these brain chemicals into the body, the human body, and not know if it's going to help or not, come on. We need to move out of that mentality and look for a bigger solution than just a chemical. I mean, the research in Europe alone has been done with looking for like the next best drug. They're looking at the cause. What is really the cause? We're going to get into that a little bit here. This online class that I'm creating is to add so much more to just these typical, little answers you're going to get from being in a Facebook group, or you heard somebody did this, or I saw this picture on Pinterest and I think I'll go ahead and try that. You're going to have a doctor who's been doing this and seeing people day in and day out for years, helping them, teach you as a parent, as an adult, how to help someone who has ADHD get better. It's amazing. I was talking to Steven on the podcast today, the enrichment to wake up that there's someone in this area, in this city, doing this. It's funny because the smallest amount of people on this webinar are from Richmond. I have more people, like 80% more of the people on this webinar are from outside of Virginia. That goes to tell you something. I know we can help more people than just my local hometown, and we're going to start doing that. So there's trouble solving these issues. Most people are focused on the negative attributes. We talked about that in the very beginning, those 4 questions. The wrong approach is with drugs and control. And that's really what it boils down to with the AMA, the American Medical Association, the pharmaceutical companies. Let's control the ADHD little kid. We're going to call him Johnny, so he can sit in class and get his work done and not disturb anybody, because public schools have so many kids in class, and we want to make sure everybody just gets their work done, takes their SOL, fits in, and gets through life medicated. Does not make sense. No, the wrong approach is with drugs and control. So we're looking here, parents, adults, and kids, we need a tried and true way of understanding, containing, and redirecting the enormous brain energy that comes with having the traits of an ADHD brain. Look at that for a second. Understanding, containing, redirecting it, okay? Nothing says cure it. Nothing says stop it. Get rid of it, okay? This is a brain that I know, in maybe if it's 2 years or 4 years or 6 years or something, that I will have been so far ahead of the curve with understanding what's going on, because right now I am in the bullseye of attacks and things like that, and some people support, some people just would like to just ream me across social media and the blogs and things like that. But I stand true. I stand strong to what I know, and my heart is right with this. Maybe it comes from being a chiropractor for 15 years. I mean, right? We just walk around with the bullseye because we have always pushed forward with natural health and healing and doing the right thing for your body and watching it get better, and not just getting sucked into the marketing and all the other stuff that's out there the rest of the world does. It's been said time and time again, the healthiest people on the planet are under regular chiropractic care. It's true. The people in my practice who are under regular chiropractic care, they are the healthiest by far, and it's not even a debate nowadays. So I'm going to stop before we get into this long list that's coming up here. I'm going to see how many more folks we have on here. Good. A lot more showed up while we're talking about that. Now, does anybody have any short questions yet? Maybe a misunderstanding or something that we don't get? I have a question about how can we get this information to the teachers in the schools? That's a great question, and we try, and of course there's a lot of red tape, and there's a lot more protection of the children nowadays, and not to come across as just someone trying to sell people something. It comes from the parents, or who know people in the PTA who can genuinely talk about what we're doing, and just to bring us in just with no strings attached, just to develop a relationship with the school so people know that there is an avenue of help, and that's the best thing we can do right now without trying to set off any alarms or things like that. Of course, we don't want to do that. We want to build a long-term relationship with the schools and with the nurses in the schools and things like that. So I appreciate that question. Now we're going to get going. We're going to move on to some other stuff. So now let's get to this list here. So the handling of ADHD issues it can be a touchy subject, and I know why other adults and parents lash out at me sometimes, because I've always been a direct person. That comes with who I am, and I've learned to temper it every now and then so that I can lovingly get my point across to people, but we need to know that there's a lot of directness that has to happen for things to change without ADHD is handled in society right now. So number one, we know it increases stress in the house and the family. Yes, high five, amen, hands are going up. Yes, we know it can be destructive and careless. We know people with ADHD, they get distracted easily. And we know number four, it's hard to handle those emotional ups and downs. I have parents who just sometimes come in so frustrated they don't know what to do, whether it's with their kids or a spouse. I've literally had a wife in my practice while I'm doing an evaluation on the husband crying to save them, save him, save the family, save the marriage. That's how important this is. Number five, casting blame, not taking responsibility. People with ADHD are horrible at self-awareness. Uh, they have also made mistakes ad nauseum, and they don't want to make mistakes on purpose, but they also don't want to feel the sting of being responsible for messing up again, and they just don't want to feel that thing. They don't. So a lot of time they're just getting the blame off of themselves. So you can talk about cognitive dissonance and all that other stuff, but it's important we understand, where that's coming from. And part of the understanding piece and going through these online classes for parents is going to be giving you the exact tools and the keys and the golden nuggets to say, oh gosh, give you the handle on what to do in those situations. Number six, low self-esteem. 80% of the people walking in the practice with ADD and ADHD, low self-esteem, and like they're carrying this burden of fear, shame, and guilt that they've had from growing up, messing up, being called names, not following through, ruining relationships, losing jobs. There's more to it than just what you see in front of you of someone who's, disturbing type of behavior or forgetful or things like that. There's a lot to it. Now, number seven, we get the whole disturbing classroom, disturbing work. That's kind of the stereotypical ADHD. Well, that's kind of like, oh, you can point that out on a playground. You can point that out in a classroom. I talk with my clients in the practice and I say, you know what? Nobody has to know that you have ADHD. And they look at me so puzzled. Like, well, but that's that's why I am like I am. I'm silly. I'm goofy. I'm jumping up and down. The adults who are in corporate world are like, well, people know that I don't always follow through, or I'm going to do like 10 things at once and this and that. Well, when we get control of it and we learn these techniques, no one has to know. Truly, because society is so stereotyped right now on ADD and ADHD that they'll just point their finger at someone who's literally like not fitting into the structure, the mold of what's supposed to be happening. So of course that adds to it can be embarrassing in public, and many people have been in situations where a spouse acted irrationally or drank too much or something like that, or got into some legal problems. And then also you have sibling issues, maybe at a restaurant where kids are fighting over something simple like whose fork is on the table or who sits next to the window. So I know this goes on, okay? I am with you. I'm so behind you, parents who are listening, that you have no idea how much I want to help you to not have to deal with that on a daily basis. And I do. I know there are people on this call right now who have come to me in tears, thanking me for bringing their son back to them, so to speak. And it's surreal when that happens, and it's powerful. So this is an amazing thing that we're doing. So I want to be able to touch more lives and help more people. That's why we're moving this to an online classroom. Number 9, it adds tension in relationships. And obviously the follow-through is below average. And number 9 is the big deal we talked about, that when you're adding tension in relationships, a lot of the people lashing out about bad parenting, ADHD, or is the father not there, or separated parents and stuff like that. I'm going to be honest with you, the enlightened adults who are more mature, who have a higher emotional intelligence, who really understand, will realize that the relationship already had its own issues. The person with the ADHD just kind of like was the catalyst to the rest of it, if that makes sense to you. I know it's really tough, and uh, I feel for you. I do. I really want you to understand that and hear that in my voice, that ADHD can definitely feel like it's breaking up a relationship, a marriage, something, however you want to call it. But you also have to be cognizant and present mind to see where there were already issues going on before the ADHD really, really started to eke its way in with a wedge. So that's important. That's part of the things that we work on. It's going to be a 6-week set of classes I'm doing twice a week for everybody who wants to join and do this. And it's obviously paid classes and things like that. And I'm going to give you a massive discount when we get through the end of this. But I'm going to move on so we can get to these solutions. Okay? There's 12 of these. They just happen to be 12 of these. It's not because it's a 12-step program or anything like that. It just happened to become 12, which might be amazing, right? Because there's 12 apostles, there's 12 steps, those kinds of things. Who knows? 12 months in the year. These 12 things are what I have noticed through the parents and the adults who have gone through my program and have done amazing and have incredible results. Okay, and they've been able to apply things and they've been able to learn and do things. So we're going to go through these. The first one is understanding ADD and ADHD, like really understanding it and understanding where it comes from, why the way it is, and how someone reacts and responds, and what it's all about. What's really going on, not just what you see on Pinterest or you see on Fox News or you see on Prevention Magazine and all this other stuff that is completely driven by other people's bottom line agendas. Second one is nutrition strategies. Nutrition strategies are going to go from the most basic to, you're going to get recipes, and here's where you buy the foods. Here's where I get my own food. Those kinds of things where I'm literally going to hand hold you, walk you through every little piece of this so you can get the most awesome changes possible. Of course, we're going to do medication discussions because there's so many out there, and I have read so many different, WebMD.com and all these things, the pharmaceutical companies' own websites, and the comments below those are a roller coaster of highs and lows, and some people love it and some people hate it, and why, people are so narrow focused. That's why we've got to look at this from a really broad perspective, and we're going to go through these. Now, you're also going to learn the exercises for home and the exercises for school, and I guess I should add in there the exercises for work, because we talked about, adults can also use this themselves, not just parents. So specifically giving you handouts saying these are the ones we want you to do. These are why you're supposed to do them. These are the ones that you can do with the children. These are the ones you can do quietly without disturbing anybody. Here are the particular ones. Now these are physical exercises and cognitive. Got it? Different. I'm going to teach you how to limit the destructive behavior. Big if destructive behavior is an issue, and not everybody has that. Now, to define destructive behavior, it doesn't have to be destroying property. It could be emotionally destructive, it could be words, it could be all of those different things, but we want to limit it and hopefully eventually eliminate it completely. Of course, I want to reduce stress on your relationships. I should make that plural. Reduce stress on your relationships, and the biggest piece to that is going to be a part of it's going to be time management. It really is. It's going to be having to get honest with the situation and really see what's going on with the relationship and how it's being affected by everybody involved. So next, number 7, connecting with emotions. The importance of emotional intelligence is becoming higher and higher, and even more so than IQ. The ability of somebody to understand their emotions, be able to control their emotions in a situation, and respond correctly, socially acceptably, uh, in a win-win type of situation, being able to connect with emotions. I don't really think that many of us as human beings were even taught how to do that. Certainly not in school. Certainly not with, the way a lot of parenting in the past has been done. And many parents who have children, a very small percent of them have even done any formal parenting training. Whether it's from an organization or through their church or something like that, possibly yes. And a high five for you if you're doing that. The the biggest piece is that a lot of parents just follow what they learned watching their parents and of course their grandparents. That just goes on and on. We're in a completely different world, folks. We are in a completely different place with technology, with distractions, with with medications, with options for health. We're a completely different place. So connecting with emotions, the important piece of that was probably best stated in John Kabat-Zinn's. He wrote a book called Wherever You Go, There You Are. And it's so true. So I want you to be able to learn. You're going to learn to connect with emotions, your own, and also helping the person in your life who has ADHD. Focusing on purpose. Learning how to focus on purpose. Learning what it feels like. Learning how to handle it. Learning when to turn it on when you really need to. Not just when you're interested in something. Because, let's face it, we're not always interested in everything that we're doing. We just have to get it done. And that's just, yes, it's part of life. It's part of something we do. Got it? Going through awareness of patterns. As a parent, understanding how things lead up to the blow up, the volcano eruption. Those of you who are on this line, I know you have several children in the house. And we sat down and we talked for a couple hours, and you can say, yes, you're right, that pattern, this started, and this person feeds off of this person's, this, bang, 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 and then that happens. Okay? That's one pattern we want to change. Awareness of patterns that are positive, that's important because we can start to add those. So if you don't know how to add into the positive patterns or even aware of how those happen, this is definitely a class situation for you. We're going back to taking responsibility. When someone becomes responsible for their behavior, responsible for who they are as a person, when they understand they've gone through those other solutions. Now this is important because you can force someone to, let's say, clean their room or do homework. You can force them to finish a spreadsheet if you're an employee or a boss or an employee to do their job. But when you help someone to become willing, they will take responsibility for the outcome. It's human nature. But if you have to force somebody to do something, I promise you, they could care less about the outcome. So we learn on maturity and responsibility. That's a big, big piece of it. We probably spent a whole week on that alone. Second to last, overcoming self-doubt. That feeds into the fear, shame, and guilt of the years and years of abuse and nuisance and changes and all of the tapes playing in somebody's brain. How do we overcome that? How do we just squash all that stuff? How do we collapse that so that it's no longer powerful to that person? And what happens when someone overcomes self-doubt is they gain a powerful reach that can change their whole life. They have a reach now where before they would just stay contained, afraid to really, really do something, go for it, to reach out, to really stretch their wings. When someone overcomes self-doubt, anything is possible. Okay? The last one is we want to empower them. Once they've gotten through the solutions, once you've learned to get through those solutions as a parent, you would be now empowered to raise a family, to raise yourself, to raise people around you, maybe in your community, organizations or clubs or churches. You would become that leader that people would start to be attracted to help them and help other families. And I know that if you're on this webinar, you care about your family and you care about other people's families as well. So that's the best part about all the big hearts of the people that have come on to this webinar tonight. So it's important. Now, we're going to check and see how this large group is going through here. All right, have any questions? Yes, there will be 2 classes per week. I'm going to go over that in the next slide. The question was, how often are the classes and how long will they be? So we're going to go over that in the next slide. Yes, I'll go over that in the next slide. Are they going to be recorded, and can anybody in their family watch them, is the question. Yes, of course. You can have anybody in your family watch them, please. That would be great. You know, keep it in the household though, please. Okay, so next we're going to move forward. How is this going to work? How do the classes work? So it's 6 weeks intensive. It's important. 6 weeks. We're not going to draw this out. We're not drag it out really far. I want to stay intense, focused, concentrated work. 2 live webinar trainings each week, and I will personally answer as many questions as I can within the hour. I will archive these trainings for your own private use. They will be recorded and placed on a special internet server where only you can get to them because you would have paid for them. Got it? Every class there'll be a workbook. There'll be workbook, there'll be homework, there'll be participation in class. This is going to be something where we're going to make some changes twice a week and work on them, so in the next 2 or 3 days before the next class you have made progress, or you've at least begun to unearth some things that you have to handle. So that's 12 hours of professional instruction. Got it? From a doctor who's gotten awards for doing all of this work helping people with ADHD. So here's how we're going to put this together. So my doctor fee per hour, if we look at everybody stacked up through the day, most doctors' fees between $200 and $400. So we had 12 hours of instructions times $300 would be $3,600 if that's the complete retail for all of this stuff. Since we're going to do this in a group format and we're going to do this online and record it for you, I'm going to give you an enormous discount, 10 times less. So a 90% discount. I'm going to bring it down to $360, which is $30 an hour of professional instruction for you from me. And trust me, nobody else is doing this online. In any of the cities, I have people driving an hour and a half to see us, and I'm an hour and a half from Washington, D.C. Which, trust me, as many chiropractors and doctors who are in Washington, D.C. and natural health professionals, no one's doing this. So here's what we do. We can pay weekly, monthly, or upfront. So weekly is $60, bi-weekly is $120. There's 3 payments of that. Or if you want to pay in full, you can save an additional $72, and it's only $288 for all 6 weeks, all 12 hours of instruction, all the workbooks you get, all the personal question and answers and help from me on a regular basis. I think that's extremely fair given how enormous the changes are that we just talked about in the family and what the future can hold for you by getting these 12 solutions under control in your life. So this is the website, mkt.com/Dr. Etka. It's like market.com, Dr. Etka, and it'll take you exactly to our online store, and I'll show you how that works. Let me just switch this over here. So you put that, copy and paste it. It goes right here. All right, it's going to end up in our online store. Really simple. You pick this one here. It says 6-week ADHD parenting class. Click on that picture, and it's going to show you. You can select the options. Okay, here's where you select the options. There's weekly payments, 6 payments. There's bi-weekly, 3 of those, or one-time upfront payment with a discount. So what you can do, click that one right there, and then you simply add to basket, all right? And then it's going to take you, then you go to your basket, and then you can pay for it. Just enter your credit card number and go ahead and get set up with the 6 weeks the ADHD parenting class. It's very simple. That's why we make it easy to do online, and everybody gets started. And then what we'll do is we'll collect everybody's information, and within a week we're going to get information to you, and we're going to get started next week on time. We're going to start on Tuesday nights and Thursday nights, and that's how we're going to roll. Got it? Now I'm going to go back and see if there's any questions about this. I know this time I'm not going to get any questions about does insurance cover this. We always hit that one. We've actually just completely done away with insurance in our practice because it doesn't make sense anymore. Questions? The medication. The question is, can the child who is needing help, if they're on the medication, will this help them even if they don't go off the medication? Yes, the choice of going off medication or something like that is completely the parent's choice. Their psychologist, psychiatrist, whoever they're working with, you guys have to have that discussion. What we've found in our practice is the parents see the changes in the children, and the client gains tools and progress enough that they decide to remove the medication. The parenting piece is separate from that. The parenting piece has to do, like we've talked about, with how well you are in those 12 things that we talked about before. These things here. These areas. So it's important that you understand that. So we'll go right forward. There's another question. I think we answered this before. These are different time zones. Okay, what time zone am I on? That's the question. I am personally on East Coast time. So 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when we would be doing these on Tuesday night and Thursday night. This is why we would be recording and archiving these classes, so that if perhaps you live on the other side of the planet, you can watch these at your leisure and watch them over and over as many times as you need to. But the answer to that question is, I am located in Eastern Standard Time. Okay. I know I've answered a lot of the questions already, just going through this with clarity. So I hope that helps you out. Are there any other questions that I need to answer? Nope. Great. Well, listen, I appreciate everyone's time. I think you did fantastic. I look forward to meeting the folks who are buying these packages and getting started. And, typically I think we're going to have between 15 to 25 people per class. And so we'll keep it concise and concentrated, so when we get to the question part, we can have those answered correctly. As going through the class, if it gets to the point where there's so many questions, I'm just going to have a private group set up on Facebook or something so people can message me questions before we do the class, and I can just hit them, maybe a general answer to all of the questions, because a lot of the questions may be the same. So anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to helping you. Have a good night.